notice, I've met most of you, so it's nice to see you again, and we're going to see each other really soon. I'm going to do my best at trying to share my screen here.
Maybe while you're doing that, I realized I didn't ask folks to introduce themselves, so I can tell who's who. Can you guys tell me who you are and what faith community you're part of? Let's see.
I'm Norm, and my faith community is Temple Shalom, but we're joining with Westminster United at the Cedars to do our food forest hedge.
Great. Let's see, I'm just going to scroll down. Ruth.
I'm also from Temple Shalom, and working together with Norm and the Westminster Church in a united front.
Wonderful, thanks. Karen.
I'm Karen Bushert, and I'm at Herb Street Mennonite Church. I think I'm the only representative here from the group, and we're excited to be part of this project.
Wonderful. Let's see. The next person looks like Ilsa.
Yep, also Temple Shalom and the Cedars.
Okay, and Carmen.
From Community of Christ in Kitchener on Fisher Holman Road.
Hi, and Joan.
I'm also Community of Christ on Fisher Holman Road, and we're also excited to be part of this project.
And Andrea.
I'm with Westminster United Church, which is with Temple Shalom, part of the Cedars, and we're also excited to be part.
Okay, and Marguerite.
Maybe use a different word, throw.
Oh, you're muted. Marguerite, you're muted. There we go.
There we go. Jeez. First the computer, then the mute. Oh well. I'm at Westminster United, and we're working with Temple Shalom at the Cedars.
Great, thank you. And Diane. Oh, and you're muted. Sorry.
Okay, I'm Diane McGarr. I'm with Westminster United Church in the Cedars, and so will my husband when he gets here shortly.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we've got all three of the remaining builds this month represented, and this is wonderful. So thank you all for making this effort on such short notice. And I'm going to turn it over to Nicola now, who can tell us more about the project.
Okay, so what we're really talking about is urban ecological wellness when we're talking about these faith veggies, because although they're going to feed us, they're going to do a lot more than that. And that's why we use permaculture techniques that we're going to talk about today, so that you know what to expect on the build day. So even though we booked off an hour and a half, I'm not sure the questions and answers will take that long, but it's going to be a quick presentation so we can sort of get to the questions that you have. So, and this is really what we're talking about, is landscapes mitigating climate change. And in permaculture, as in Grand River Food Forestry, our purpose is to care for the earth, care for each other, and share the wealth, which is very similar to Ujamaa, which is cooperative economic shared work and wealth. So as we gather, let's remember that we're on the land that is a traditional home of many Indigenous people. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to this place. We also recognize the contributions Indigenous peoples and African diaspora peoples of Queensbush Landing have made in shaping and strengthening this community. And although we do land acknowledgements, people will do them before hosting a presentation. I feel for myself, it's important for me to do it because I work with land every day. So what we're talking about when we're talking about food forestries, which is not what we're actually doing with your sites, we're doing food forestry, but we're cutting out the tree part of this succession. So we're doing hedges, which are food hedges, which means that the tallest plants that you will have in your veg will be a berry bush rather than a fruit tree. Now, the reason why we do that is because if we plant fruit trees, they need a special, more kind of care than apple trees and other fruit trees do. So we will plant them, but generally in community we don't, because also people are transient, and you don't want to create this situation that now becomes a sore spot for everybody else. So we do the 7 layers of the food forest, which is agroforestry, and it's a land management practice that integrates the growing of trees and crops. So as you can see, the highest layer is the fruit tree, and then we go down in succession till we get to the ground cover, and then we even use vines to grow up. So why we want to do that is it's a polyculture versus a monoculture. So in a monoculture, you can see on the side here, I have a picture of a lavender farm that I went to, and when you grow things in a monoculture, you have no protection against wind, sun, rain, drought, or pests. But if you have a polyculture, if you lose a crop, you won't lose everything. And also, just as a side, you can see that there's these sustainable development goals. I wanted to show you that the UN has put together the sustainable development goals for all of the countries to follow. And I just wanted you to follow along with them as well to see how many of these the agroforestry actually hits of those targets. So, and why do we want to do this? It's ecological versus economic health. We need to put those two things together and stop seeing them so much as separate. The number of wild animals worldwide has halved in the last 40 years. So in increasing our biodiversity in our own backyards, on our community spaces, we're increasing this opportunity for biodiversity. This image is an image that I put together of all of the interaction that I know of, that I could see in my backyard. And when you see them all together, you get to realize how many different species are interacting at your site, whereby when you look at them individually, you just think of them individually and you think of them as more common. But these are all of the very common relations of ours that we're going to help in this biodiversity. And we're looking at the underutilized green spaces. This is what Grand River Food Forestry is about, is land observation, preservation, regeneration, and reconciliation. So what that means is that even though we're building a veg and it's edible, you're also regenerating the soil underneath. So, and this is a screenshot that I have for my presentations. What if we could be the change to an ecologically sustainable future? Well, you folks have already signed up and we're ready to build. So you are going to be a part of the change of the future. What are the components, the ideal partners? In this case, it's you guys and our motivations. And how can we expand this movement, and what can you do? And in this case, you're already doing it. So what are the benefits? These are some of the things that people want to know. It's food security, nutrition, and cash income when plants reach maturity. So when you propagate those plants after 4 to 5 years, you can take berry bushes about this size, 6 inches, propagate them in water, have roots, and if you're doing cuttings anyways, you have 10 of those, you sell them for $10, you have $100 towards your community project or what have you. So it's a way to actually, it's almost an investment also for your community. Forests are a habitat to an estimated 80% of the world's biodiversity, which is why it's so integral for us to try to increase them. And especially in the urban environment where we really just tear things down. Food to wildlife and homes to many pollinator species, increases soil health for agriculture, because the more dense the nutrition is in your soil, the more dense the nutrition is of your food. Vegetation cools the soil and decreases evaporation, providing shade and humidity, mitigates climate change by absorbing carbon dioxide and storing carbon, stimulates the water cycle, increasing rainfall and retention in the soil. So it also diverts water from watersheds also. One of the great things is that it's crosses all barriers of age, gender, culture, and religion, because why? Everybody eats. And it's a great way for us to collaborate together. What I would love to see is we have these 8 faith sites, these faith churches, is that somehow that connects you to each other somehow in sharing about your food forest or what have you. That would be really special, through soil education, land stewardship, and conservation. So you also have the opportunity at these sites to create education for some of the youth in your community. I also inspire you to invite the youth to come on Saturday. As small as they are, we've had 2-year-olds that have saved worms while we've been planting. They have a fun time wetting the cardboard for us. And it's really important for us to include them so that we can help them make the connection with soil to their foods, so that even though they may not be gardening now, but in the future, they will understand that process. So the components for that are right site. So you guys all have the right site with the right soil ecology. And then even then we amend the soil, permission to plant, which you've already given us, and proximity to consumers. So we never want to plant these things in a distance away from people. We want them to be in a walking zone, so you're always walking by, because the highest nutrition of the food that you're going to be eating is when you pick it. So, and then the right people as local champions like yourselves, local steward volunteers, again, walking distance, and then administrative support, financial and in-kind support. Then the right plants, so permaculture, biomimicry, we're using these techniques, local perennial food plants, funding, local nursery collaboration. So growing food together and sharing the harvest creates strong social and ecological links, which is why we often invite people over for supper, because it's a great bonding for us when we break bread together. Excuse me. So this is where our land observation, preservation, regeneration, and reconciliation comes into play when we think about the rights for the site in remembering ancestral agricultural practices in place, but also from your own lineage. In this area, it's Queensbush settlement cleared most of the land here for agriculture from freed and escaped slaves from that time. So it's people connection to land. So remembering these relationships and relationships to plants and soil as medicine and sacred, so that we don't just see this work that we do when we're working with soil as just something that we get from it, but that we're actually participating in a bigger picture for our ecological overall wellness. So offering life to future generations and our planet also. So rights for people, food sovereignty, and social justice, mobilizing community to ethical land stewardship, educational, recreational site resources for children and senior programming is some of the ways you can utilize that site. Eating better is cheaper over your lifespan because chronic illness is expensive. So the more ways that we can get high nutritional foods in our diets, the better. And then rights for plants. So at the same time, we try to enhance the native plant species, which enhances the food and habitat for the wildlife that are already here. So it's restorative and regenerative agriculture that equals nutrient-dense food, biodiversity, carbon sequestering, etc. So it's sort of like looking to nature to slow down so that we ourselves can speed up. So, and what will we be doing in these next coming Saturdays with each of your groups? So what we'll be working with is a lasagna gardening, which is also called no-till permaculture technique. So the reason why we do that is because tilling the soil ruins the soil structure. So, and it's biomimicry. So what that means is we want to mimic what a forest does. So forests don't till their soil. What you see, and they have beautiful soil in forests, is that the leaves are always falling, sticks are falling, scats mixing in with that. So we mimic that layering process that already happens in a forest. So it mimics nature. It's less work. So I don't know if you've ever tried to take off the top of your grass to try and make a new bed. That will make nobody want to make a new garden bed. So it makes agriculture a lot more accessible because it's a lot faster to do this. And then the cons are it ruins soil structure and kills millions of beneficial biotas. So what does that mean? So if you look at all of these bacteria, fungi, some of these that you know, some that you don't know, 1 hectare of soil contains 15 tons of organisms, which is the equivalent to the weight of 20 cows. So you can see the disturbance you're making when you're tilling. Now I'm a visual person, so if you look at this teaspoon, within that 1 teaspoon are all of these microorganisms that are beneficial. So how do we utilize them? So what we do, the process is that this is a build that we just recently did 2 Saturdays ago at Victoria Park. It's on the Iron Horse Trail, and it's with the community garden, the Victoria Park Community Garden organization. So what will happen on the Saturday, when I usually get there about an hour before everybody, and then what I'll do is I'll set up the design, which you've all seen, and set up the plants where they go. So as you can see here, the plants are in place, and then as the volunteers come, they just create a hole where the plants specifically are. We don't plant them at that time, but we just create the hole and then put them in the hole. So then the next step is that we suppress the grass and the weeds with cardboard. We've wetted a lot on both sides, so it's really soaking. And in the other image here, you can see how where the potted plants are, they're not planted yet, they're still in their pots, but we start to put the cardboard around each of the individual pots. So we do that because, again, it suppresses the weeds and the grass, but worms use it for bedding and food, and thereby that's where your no-till comes in. They start to turn it. So that was a eureka moment some over 10 years, maybe, well, longer now, that I found that it just changed my whole gardening game. And so then after we do the cardboard on the left here, you can see that we put a triple mix on top of that. And then the next layer is the straw. So this is where the lasagna starts to come in. The straw, what it does is it creates a structure for the bed, but it also allows for air and water and things to move freely through the bed. And then also invites insects into that space, beneficial insects that we need. And if you think about 10 years ago, even when you were driving along, you would always have a lot of bugs on your windscreen. Well, check it out this year when you're driving and see how many you see. We have so little biodiversity with insects, and that's what we really need to try and increase, because they're integral into our food process. So, and this is the, if any of you haven't seen it, this is basically the design. This is the design that we've created for you, but that doesn't mean you have to stick to this design. The plants will all be the same. At that one you saw at Victoria Park, we actually put sort of 2 horseshoes opposite each other. So there was a walkway between. So that's also an opportunity to do that too. So I'm not sure if you were counting along, but it turns out that food forestry hits all 17. I did a talk in Huntsville just before pandemic last year, and I had 12 of them. And then the people that I was doing the workshop for convinced me that no, there's 17, and then went through each of them. So that's pretty interesting to know that on your site, you will be hitting all 17 of the SDGs that's set out by the UN. And, you know, we want to encourage you to create opportunities for fun in your gardens, to think about nature more inclusively, more than something it does for us, but what can we do in return? So our vision at Grand River Food Forestry is land observation, preservation, regeneration, and reconciliation in land acknowledgement, food security, sovereignty, and justice for all. We've invited you, and you've answered the call to join us to create this capacity together, a resilient and restorative ecological future for all of our relations. And sometimes we may say, well, this small thing won't make such a difference. It's 250 square feet, but there's value in one and there's power in many. So as the more of us come together and create these spaces, the more biodiversity we're creating, and the more mitigation of climate change that we are affecting. So I think we're open to questions now. If you want to, you can, I'm not sure where our host is, but if you want to go ahead and start asking me questions, I'm okay with it.
I'm here. I just had to relocate because someone's decided to get a chainsaw going out back, and it's very noisy now. One of my neighbors, this is what happens. You're talking about restoring and all these beautiful things, and then the chainsaw started. Okay.
Nicola, I have some, very pretty practical questions about our build on Saturday. But you wanted us to stay afterwards. I'm wondering what kinds of questions I should ask now versus later.
Well, go ahead and ask your questions, and then we'll go from there, Norm. Because I know I may not have gotten to the emails that you sent me. It's been a pretty busy week, so I'll be grateful to answer them now for you.
Okay. So I'm going to make myself available on the day before, on June 11th. I'm just wondering, when I have to be there, very practically, what information will I have about the delivery and what is being delivered, and when it will happen, etc.
Yeah, so I normally arrange the delivery for the mulch and the triple mix for the Friday. So, and then you can just let me know what time is a good time to have that delivery. Sorry, I'm just distracted for 1 second. Yeah, so they will deliver that. I know in your case you have one extra, so we'll be doing one less, but also to put the site where they're going to dump the materials as close as possible to where we're going to build. So if you X mark the spot or have somebody come there, they don't necessarily always need somebody there if you've marked out the spot. It's better just so that we don't get any confusion and they put it in the right place. But I can send out an email for you to let me know, or if you can email me back actually and just let me know what time on Friday each of your groups will be available, and then I can order those tomorrow for your builds.
And does any of that stuff have to go inside?
No, none of it. And I have the plants, so that's not going to be delivered. I will personally be bringing the plants and the straw.
Okay, great. And my understanding is that you're bringing the sanitizer and the sign-up sheet?
I was initially, but if you guys can provide that, now that I have the plants and all of these other things, that would be great. So if you could just have a sign-up sheet and some hand sanitizer, that would be great, so that we can just record everybody that comes. If anybody gets sick, then we can let everybody else know. And masks, of course. So anybody who's going to be participating as a volunteer needs to have a hat, mask, gloves if they want them, some kind of boot that you can dig with, and a shovel. And definitely water and taking breaks. If we can keep that at the top of the list. I just had heat stroke on Saturday at a build and it was not fun. So we'll just take our time. This is really crazy heat compared to most years. This is why we usually do it in May and June, because it's cooler. July and August gets hotter, but we're experiencing July this year in June and May. So everything is different. So the builds normally take about 2.5 hours. They never really take longer. But with this heat, I don't want to put those kind of restrictions on it, because I want people to be able to take the breaks that they need to.
Okay. And now I did ask you about having an Indigenous presence at the beginning. One of our members who's on board, who's here at the meeting, said that she knew someone. I mean, what should we leave that to you, or should we pursue it ourselves?
I did get in contact, and I did get a response. And that was just today. So I haven't heard back from her yet, and ours is this Saturday. So I'm not sure if the turnaround would be if we would be able to do that. So I would probably suggest to continue to pursue the one that you have, in case the one that I have isn't able to make it on Saturday. And then if any of your other groups want to participate with that, I have an alliance with an Indigenous group, and they have an elder that is willing to do land acknowledgements if you're interested in that. So if you are, let me know. But I haven't heard back from her yet, so I don't really know her availability.
Okay. And is there still going to be some kind of pizza party afterwards, or is that?
Yes. So Laura can speak to that.
Okay.
I'm happy to. First, I want to apologize, Paul and Nancy, when we were introducing ourselves. I missed you, and I'm very sorry. I was scrolling down, and I don't know how that happened. So before we go any further, do you want to tell us where you're from? Say hi.
Not a problem. We must have been bottom of the list, but yeah, we're also with Community of Christ Church in Kitchener.
Thanks to you both. Yeah, so, you know, COVID has changed everything. And we also realized that, you know, people would have their own food preferences. Nicola had said in the past when she does these, she typically orders pizza, and that's what it's quick and easy. It shows up and ask you to, you know, ask people to bring beverages, obviously in that list that Nicola gave: hat, mask, gloves, a water bottle for sure. You know, and if you can have cold drinks. Now, again, the challenge for me is with these dates. Turns out I'm out of town on Saturdays. Typically, I have some family commitments in right now, and so I'm wondering if it would be okay for the sites that remain that are happening in the next 3 weeks. If you want to order, we had budgeted $100 for pizza and drinks, and if you want to order that and provide that, and then just deduct that from your the $400 that we would ask each site to contribute to Faith in the Common Good to reduce the, you know, that was sort of a contribution we were asking each site to make. That's something that would be helpful if you could do that. And I did want to ask folks how they felt about that. It's one less thing for Nicola to have to do on the day of, and I'm not in town. And
Sure.
I think, does that sound okay? Are there nods?
Yeah, and I guess we can negotiate with the people that show up what they want.
Yeah, yeah. That's the other thing with dietary restrictions and stuff. I don't know. I just think, you know, pizza and some cold drinks. Asking people to bring their own water, and if you could get some water jugs just
Sure.
so they're able to have that, that would be great.
Sounds good.
And then we'll just take that off of the amount that we were asking each group to contribute, if that's okay.
Sounds good. I just have one other question, and that's I'm just confirming that we will be sent the link of this meeting so that we can pass it on to people who are not here.
Yes. Now, our host, 50 by 30, Kai, down at the bottom. Kai, are you? How quickly do you think we can get the link shareable?
Yeah, so I just need to get it uploaded to the Faith Common Good YouTube. And so I have the contact who did that before. So I just need to send them the file, and then so within, depending on how quickly they upload it, within a day, couple days. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, okay, cool. Is there a way we could get it done more quickly? Maybe not.
Well, I just need to have the login information, right? They uploaded it on their end before.
All right.
Yeah, so, but I can send a message to that effect now.
Oh, wonderful, thank you. Just because I know Norm's got people waiting for this week.
Sure. Yeah.
Great. Let's, I think I can see everyone right now. And the other thing we'll just send it through our key contacts for each group, and then you can share it out. Would that be okay? Okay, great. All right, I saw, yeah, Ruth, I saw your hand up.
I just had two questions. Do you need a wheelbarrow, or is that okay? You don't need people to shift around straw in?
We do. Thank you for saying that, Ruth. We need at least two wheelbarrows is perfect.
I have one.
Great. So, and also the cardboard is to have enough cardboard to cover 250 square feet each of your sites. And a hose that also reaches where we're going to be working, because after we're done, we're going to have to wet the whole thing. So ensure that you have a hose that reaches.
So we need a hose, okay. And we need a connection to water, eh, Norm? We have to find it.
Yeah, you have one that's fairly close to the site at your site, because I came there, and that's one of the things we definitely are looking for.
Yes, and we have now enough lengths of hose to get over there, no problem. So
okay, great.
Okay. The other question was, the cardboard, you were saying it's like a lasagna, so the cardboard stays down, is that right?
Yeah, the cardboard is on the bottom layer, and
Mhm.
then which is on top of the grass or whatever it is we're putting the bed in, and then comes the triple mix, and then straw, then more triple mix, straw, triple mix. That's the top layer, and it's actually at that layer when we actually plant the plants, and then we add the mulch in the end, because it comes up about a foot and a half once we've layered it up. So if we plant the plants in the beginning, they're going to be too low. So that's why we wait until we've gone up. But actually, after the first winter, everything will mulch down to regular ground level.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just going to come in for a second and say to the people from the Cedars who we're online now, and also Nicola, that some of our volunteers that are coming don't have their own shovels. So if you can bring more than one or borrow one from your neighbor, or et cetera, please do.
I will bring 5, so that's about as much as I can manage to bring. But
Joan.
So Community of Christ, first of all, we have ours on not this Saturday, but next Saturday. So if anybody wants to drive over and visit us while we're doing it, within provincial regulations, of course, feel free to come and meet us. But my question is, you had talked originally about having, I think it was 19 people or something like that, but we'll be in stage 1 and the restrictions are 10 people outside at a gathering in stage 1. Did you find out whether or not there's an exception because it's agriculture, or do we need
it's up to 25.
To 25, okay.
For agriculture, yeah. But we say usually between 10 to 15, but we usually get about 20. That's kind of the average that usually shows up, is about 20 people. And we've been able to work at a distance with that.
Okay. So we don't need to schedule people in shifts then?
No.
Okay. And then my second question, you've said a couple of times about the fact that it goes up about 1.5 feet, but then, after the first winter, it's down. Does it actually go back down to the original level, or is it up 2 or 3 or 6 inches?
It's about 2, maybe you'll be like 2 or 3 inches up.
Okay. Ours is bordering a sidewalk. So what do we need to do to keep all that from sliding onto the sidewalk during that year?
Yeah, that's a good question. Often with the mulch often holds it in place, and then we kind of dig a little trench. That's something that you might have to do over and over, but you can also just get some logs or rocks if you want to, and that's something you could do down the road. If you find that it's falling a lot, often it really does hold itself. So it's sort of dependent on your site, I would say.
Okay.
And it's something you don't have to do immediately either. Like if you don't have the funds for that, you can always do it down the road and add it. And also I want to say that when you build this could be a beginning of something else. We've done 3 years worth of work each year at Mill Cortland Community Center here in Kitchener. And I did a 5-year design with them. And so we've been working on it over the last 3 years, outside of COVID anyway. But it could be an idea for a bigger thing that you're doing on your site. So thinking about adding benches and creating that kinds of interaction at the site. Once it gets mature, there's going to be shade there. So that'll be a nice respite to have a little bench there, or so it can grow with your community as well, and you can add on to it.
Okay, thanks.
And Nicola, will you be able to share with people as they're building too ideas for how they can add on or answer questions about things they may want to plant, and if they
Absolutely. Yeah. That's pretty much the whole build, is answering lots of questions, because it's such a different technique to most people that there's a lot of questions, and I'm ready and willing and able to answer them. So we'll be doing it together. And it looks a lot more complicated and it sounds more complicated than it really is. And when we do it together, you'll see how simple it is. And then hopefully you'll be able to just do it in your garden and continue level of biodiversity in your own yards too, and your community members. That's the great thing about doing these, is that, you know, the 20 people that come to build it now have that knowledge and can go away and share. So it's really great for each one, teach one.
Wonderful. I just wanted to hop back to the food for a minute, and I know, Norm, you said you were in with the Cedars, but I wanted to check in with Karen and Joan, and also suggest that if you wanted to just have your congregation provide, you know, food to share, if that would contribute to the experience of sharing food, you're more than welcome to do that, and we'll just take the $100 off, and we'll call it an in-kind contribution. So if that's something that is more appealing than ordering takeout pizza, by all means do that and just let me know. Okay.
That's fine.
I'm a big fan of, you know, preparing and sharing food. Great. Are there any other questions?
I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of the second generation, you know, when those of us who've learned how to do it go home and look at our yards. And I'm already thinking about the boulevard between the sidewalk and the road in front of my house, where all the dogs come and pee, and where the snowplow pushes snow onto it. So with the snowplow especially pushing snow onto it, does that negate being able to do a food forest, or are there ways to do that? I just think, you know, if people knew that one thing about whether or not they need to avoid places that are close to salters.
Yeah, I wouldn't plant to eat on a boulevard, really. It's not to say that you can't, but, and especially things like lettuce, where that's the whole fruit. Generally, you know, with gas and those kind of emissions, with berries and things, by the time it gets to the fruit, that's all gone from it anyway. But again, I mean, dogs are peeing there, just like you said. Nobody wants to eat from there. So you can do other things, though. You can plant a beautiful pollinator garden there that will increase the biodiversity. And, you know, when bees are coming along and they see grass, it's like a desert for them. So it's really great if everybody could get involved in the boulevards, because then now you have corridors. Because if you imagine a bee is coming here and then it has to go 2 blocks again to go eat, what you want to try to create is a corridor, and boulevards are amazing for that. And then it doesn't really matter if the dog poos or peeps there, you know, it's increasing biodiversity. It's beautiful. And then wherever you are growing food, I went on a tour of organic farms years ago. Every single farm had a huge pollinator garden. So it just goes to show you how integral the pollinators are for your garden. So it can only benefit you to see flowers anyway.
Thank you.
I love the corridor idea. I think that's a great idea for a project for another year.
We did it already in Central Frederick neighborhood. We did one there. So it was Central Frederick pollinator gardens. And so it was pollinator neighborhood, I should say. And that was really the idea that the champions of that neighborhood came up with, was so that when bees are coming, they have a corridor. So they just went around the neighborhood themselves. They got a grant. They asked neighbors who wanted to participate. They received the plants. We built it together. They built them on their front lawns. It was a really good experience. It got into COVID. So at the end, it kind of peeled out in ways that it wasn't, so we didn't get to interact as much with as many people in the end, but they still were able to plant themselves.
That's lovely.
So that's a good idea. Next steps after your church, then the community, so the neighborhood.
Any other questions? I'm hoping, Nicola, I know you got a lot on your plate. I'm hoping that if possible, you could take some photographs as you're doing this.
That's a tough one for me, actually. So if anybody in your communities wants to be in charge of being the go-to, because I'm too busy doing things. I don't remember. I'm a little ADHD, so I'm like, I often forget the before pictures. So I'm so excited to get in there and start doing it. So yeah, if somebody could do it, and I usually will say somebody, could you take some pictures now? I take a few, but if somebody could specifically be the person, that would be really awesome, especially for your community as well. Then they can get all of the shots of each of you that they know. So
So just add that to your list of hats and water bottles. Somebody bring, I guess you don't even need to bring cameras anymore, do you? See, I'm a dinosaur. Anyway,
yeah,
somebody
no.
take some pictures. Okay, any other questions about the project?
Would you still like us to stay?
Oh, yes, please. If Cedars could stay on for a minute. And then for everyone else, when we send you the link, I'll send you the link for Faith in the Common Good, and you can just send them or send them a check or an e-transfer, whatever works, and I'll send you the address for your contribution toward the project. It's just important when we received the funding for this that we were demonstrating that everybody had a little bit of skin in the game, and that's why we asked that. So hopefully, if you're contributing food and so on, if it's $300, that's not too much to ask to participate. So thank you in advance for that.
And if you can send me the time and the contact person who will receive the materials delivery, and have that person mark out where the delivery is going to go, that would be fantastic, please. And then I can arrange that for you.
Oh, there's some of this in the text there for you, Nicola. So before we
Sorry?
go, there's some of that information in the text there for you. From Joan.
Yeah, I was just expressing that I would love to join one of these. So we made arrangements in the chat there, but
oh, great.
Yeah, that the 19th at Community of Christ works for me, and I can take pictures. So just to confirm that for that date,
awesome.
It sounds, I mean, I'm sure that these will all be such an amazing learning experience. So I'd be grateful to join one.
Okay, but if everybody else, actually everybody, please just send Nicola an email directly with the contact person and the time and so on for the drop-off. That's important.
Okay, I look forward to seeing you all. It's going to be exciting and it's going to be beautiful.
Wonderful, thank you. And Nicola, can you stay on with the Cedars?
Yeah,
people, please? Thank
absolutely.
you.
Thank you all.
Everybody.
Good night, everyone.